Okay, guys, last but not least, we have a very good panel to kind of wrap this two-day conference up. We're going to be talking about innovation driving the industry powered by consistent data. And there's no one better to moderate this panel than the CEO of RISO, Sam Debord. So Sam, do you want to come up here and introduce your panelists?
Thank you, Joe. Everybody come on up. We're going to get peppy this session because we know it's the end of the day. We're going to move through this. But these are folks who are doing it in the marketplace, are working with these technology systems and standardized data. So I'm going to actually introduce you as we start the questions so we can just really get right into the business. So Mathew with Stellar MLS, who you know is involved on the technology side. He's a scientist. But you work with a lot of different kinds of data. We've talked a lot about property data, and that's most of our focus. But you also onboard agents. So there's roster information, there's historical information. What do standards or just technology changes in general, innovation you're doing in your space, what kind of effects does that have on working with information about your people?
So very quickly, yeah. I mean, the standards are important not just across property data, but also membership data. Why? Mainly, it creates a lot of efficiencies, obviously, that you already heard about, of onboarding the agent, right? So somebody joins, for example, our MLS, they get immediately access to everything they need to have access to, right? All the tools, we know everything that we need to know. They can immediately be linked to a property. So there's so many efficiencies that we can derive by just having a standardized way of importing that information. That's number one. But I think the biggest benefit really ultimately is interoperability. That's really the biggest benefit. On average, in the US, an agent has between 14 to 18 tools that they use. And can you imagine if all of the information that these tools have to share between each other even, right, are not standardized? It's impossible to make a choice, a different choice of a different application, for example, right? Migration of that information, it's just very, very difficult. So lots of benefits. I could go on forever, so I'm going to keep it short.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. So Bill Fowler with Modern.tech, helping new proptech companies understand the space, understand MLSs, understand industry, and how to scale, because getting started with one customer is great, but then we hit the real hurdles. What is your advice when you talk to these new proptech companies as how to really pragmatically build their business plans to scale, whether across borders in Europe, whether across states in the United States? What does that look like?
Well, let's start with the initial conversation is they come to me because I know everyone. I've been doing, operating in this space, in this network of MLS executives for 20 plus years now. And they say, can you help me get Jeremy to answer my emails? and the conversation begins with them thinking wisely that if they get the attention of someone like these guys, that's going to kind of like provide them with this rocket ship moment in their adoption and so forth. And that's really like the beginning of the interaction, because Jeremy has hundreds of people in his inbox, as do you, just by virtue of your title and your position at Stellar. So my advice to them is that they're going to approach these MLSs in the same way with one product, but it's going to be Jeremy's governance is very different, than Matthew's governance is very different. Their data is actually very different, but thanks to RISO, the data dictionary and so forth makes that a lot easier. But this is it's even though we have a centralized database and even though it's centralized at the market level and there's a lot of efficiencies implied by MLS, it's still a very difficult place to scale. Because the models are different, because the adoption levels are different, and the expectations of these young companies are sometimes not lined up with that.
And so many of you know Jeremy is former CEO of RISO. He's CEO of First MLS in Atlanta. And you are somewhat the gatekeeper. These tech companies want to come to you, to your space. And you've worked a lot in, obviously, the data standardization space. You had the RISO native data dictionary work that was done as you were coming on board. How does that work for you? Do you see these startup companies coming in, and does the standardization of your marketplace and your technology help them come into your marketplace more quickly?
Well, I think Saul said this morning evolution, but the RISO standard has become a revolution in reality for our tech companies coming into this space. And Gazelle did it this morning. What she showed this morning was the revolution of using the Rezo Web API in a real time, not replicating data. We have vendors that do come, and by the way, I do answer my emails. So, as a consultant, Bill gets paid to tell them how to get me to answer the emails, though, to be clear.
I'll just text you.
Yeah, all right. But at the end of the day, they come to us, we give them a Rezo standardized feed, and with the data dictionary and the web API now, we literally have startup companies that are live with a product with data from us in 24 hours. That used to take months of replicating data, and she showed this morning how it's literally, you can just access it on the fly. And I like that term, by the way, I'll go with that. And I think that has been a revolution for our industry in using those standards. And it's portable because the data dictionary is already translated into other languages. You have Stellar, who's translated into Spanish. You have Portland, who's translated into Mandarin and beyond. And so it's successful internationally, and it continues to be an option to standardize and translate into other languages so it works for the marketplace internationally.
And you know, we showed those charts of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and the long, slow climb. Well, Jeremy was there when we got that climb going, really. So buy him a nice glass of champagne while you're here at the event for being the guy who really got that off the ground. But sticking with you, you're involved heavily in data shares now. Like maybe one of the biggest headlines we see, it's always got first MLS in these data shares. Tell us a little bit about your strategy there and what your thoughts are on why that's important for your market and the difficulties or the benefits of that for your customers.
We're here to help our brokers and agents transact real estate. There's a lot of MLSs in the United States, so you think that's fragmented. My agents send business to Stellar MLS's market area and vice versa. They buy second home properties in Florida. They relocate. I have a broker in San Francisco who literally flies to Atlanta once a month because her relocation clients are coming. And we do data shares, and when it is native Rezo Data Dictionary like us and Stellar, we can pull it off in 4 weeks. When the standards are in place to that level, and we're talking about data sets of 87,000 subscribers and our 57,000 subscribers. We're talking massive data sets, and we can do a full data share in 4 weeks because of the Rezo Data Dictionary standard between us. And the next thing you know, I have enabled my agents not to just work locally, but intelligently refer business to other marketplaces. And we are doing data shares not just with Stellar, but with California Regional MLS in California, with Denver, Colorado, many MLSs in Alabama, Miami, and others. And the ability for agents to earn alternative revenue through a referral network is not just in the United States, because we have so many international buyers. And that's why we're here today, is the opportunity to open the door to share data with anyone so that any agent can have the option to see intelligently what's going on in the market, advise their client, and refer them, which is another manner for them to earn money and transact business.
And I think we've heard that a lot from you. We've heard that a lot here, that you do a lot more cross-border transactions than we do, and that having that shared knowledge about properties to trust your referral partners with that information is a big deal. So,
if I could add one thing to what you're saying, is that the value of Jeremy's data share and the value of MLS is having relationships, just generally speaking, and regardless of geographies. I mean, these are not markets that are next to each other. The industry is rife with MLSs who are partnering with each other for economies of scale. Not only just data sharing, but also our jobs is to get the best products in the hands of the best agents. I mean, in the US, there's a stratification of production, the top 15%, the bottom 80%. I mean, you can slice and dice that in a lot of different ways. And so your membership, which I think we used to discuss members as this unified body, is really 5 or 6 different personas executing on different levels, needing different levels of technology. So the 18 products that you just said, our job is to get those, the newest versions of those products, into the hands of those agents as quickly as possible. So the relationship between these two MLSs and other MLSs around the country, who on the surface don't have a relationship necessarily that makes a lot of sense, the lines of extension mean that they can also share technology with each other directly and immediately.
And I'll add in that if there's a vendor in his space that already has a data feed and they want to come to Atlanta, I have no issue granting him permission to just add my data to that feed. So they don't have to do a separate data feed with me. We'll just do an agreement that he can send them my data too. The pipe's created, the engineering's done, the standard's the same, the fields are the same, and then boom, they have Atlanta data, and boom, they have San Jose data, and boom, they could have any data in this room.
And we should probably add, I don't think we actually described native data dictionary. It's a term that gets batted around a lot in the standard space, which is, at RISO, we certify an API, the data coming out of a system, but lots of MLSs and brokerage organizations and vendors find it valuable for the input forms to have the same name as the reports, as the CMAs, as the agent emails and listing alerts, that if you use the same name through that entire process, which is something that individual organizations decide to do on their own, they get that consistent customer experience, and their brokers generally like being able to describe things the same way to their customers. So you've done that work as well at Stellar. We did some great work with you on just describing the integrations you've done with all your new technology projects and the timelines and the improved efficiencies you've had with that. From a data share perspective and from integrating new products, what does that look like for you for the past few years?
Yeah, I mean, it is dramatically different, right? When you have systems communicate with each other in the same language, we're talking about anything between 50 to 75% faster. I mean, we talked about 4 weeks integration with FMLS, but even other products, instead of 4 weeks, it's maybe 1 week only. Very quickly, we can onboard new applications. And I kind of want to add a little story to this, because we always talk about products for agents and making money and all that stuff, right? But there's a whole different aspect here when it comes to standardization, and that has to do with accessibility and enabling people that otherwise wouldn't have an ability to work with that real estate data. And the story that I have is really of a small company, and Jeremy has onboarded them as well, that came to us and said, hey, we have a technology with Alexa where blind people can, or people with visual impairments can actually find homes. What they would otherwise do is they would go through a screen reader, and it's a very crazy process of how they actually find homes. And this is just a device that tells you, yep, this is this house, this price on this street, it's beautiful, et cetera, right? Now, this person has a very small market for his technology. It's only people with visual impairment. If the data wasn't standardized, there's very little scope for him to actually grow that quickly. And that's a whole subset of people that would not be enabled into our industry and into a market and that experience, right? But thankfully, he was able to be invested into this company. We're very big on fair housing at Stellar anyways, and so are other MLSs. But, and now he's able to grow 1,500% year over year. And has onboarded 22 MLSs across the country. He's now covering a user base of more than 300,000 agents within 1 year. And that's only enabled because of standard data.
Yeah, can I add to that real quick? Because that's Lundy is the story, and it's his story. I think is a perfect example of the network of relationships that drive this industry. Those relationships and the hub of those relationships are RISO 9 times out of 10. I had lunch with Justin Lundy at RISO spring of last year. I think that was San Antonio. All these things are, I don't even know what time it is. Or yeah, I don't even know what's going on. Am I in Paris still? And so as we're having lunch, he's looking across the room. Well, that's that person. You should probably talk to that. And it's just these relationships and the relationships between the MLSs, which is the opportunity that Europe has, is to create. There's a small room of people who are going to be driving these industries and these innovations. And that is a great example of someone who came into the industry with zero experience, had built a beautiful product. We collectively saw it for what it was worth, put him in front of the right people at the right time, and he's where he is now. Amazon just bought, essentially, his product to distribute to Alexa.
And literally, my board took 7 minutes to approve. We're doing this for the good of the industry. And with the data shares in place, we didn't just light up FMLS. We lit up Birmingham, Alabama's MLS, Chattanooga, Tennessee MLS, Mobile, Alabama MLS, Macon, Georgia MLS, all at the same time. And we were one of his first, and he was done in weeks, and he did Houston in a week from concept to data feed to live because of RISO standards.
It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, you can see the magic of the network take place, and that's just a great example of how this works.
Yeah, it's a great place to close. It's been amazing what we've gotten from content from the speakers here. As we said, we've been just overwhelmed with the number of leaders who have decided to be a part of this event. And we end on community. We end on something that's not just about commissions and profit. It really is about the big picture, and the people in the real estate industry understand that it is more than just sales, which is really nice to see. Doesn't hurt to come to Paris, but even with this work that we're all putting in, it's really great to have all of you as part of an event like this, knowing that that big picture is really important to the communities that we build. So thank you all for being a part of this. Thank you all. And Joe, I think we're back to you.
Okay, so that concludes the inaugural International MLS Forum. Please give yourselves a round of applause, everybody. This was a long 2 days. I know personally I have my sauna fix in. I won't need to hit the sauna for at least a month. Anyway, one last thank you to our organizers, Seppi, Guy, thank you so much. Riso, Sam, thank you so much. Ali and Giselle, Realtina, thank you so much. And one special shout out to all of our sponsors. Like I said, without you all, this event would not happen. And before we leave, I just want to leave you with one last thought. Being in this, seeing this kind of process happen for a few years now, do not go on this road alone. This is a very, very complicated process. By these last 2 days, we've seen that people in this industry like to share. They like to collaborate. Everyone in this room is a specialist in whichever field that you represent. Use this network here and continue to utilize your network to build and build and build, to continue to build your market for your consumers. So again, with that being said, one last round of applause, and this was a great, great conference. Yeah. Thank you, thank you. I lied. One last thing. One picture with everybody, and then we're all dismissed. Go enjoy Paris.